Hey, what's going on, y'all? It is ChatterBox, another episode of the GreatConvo Media family of shows, our very special show called ChatterBox. And these shows are about just that, the GreatConvo Media family of shows. We've talked to you. This is episode 4, I do believe, and we are getting it in right now with the very hilarious, the very thought-provoking, and the absolute, I'm from Memphis, so I say bumping, and the absolutely bumping scenario radio show. We've got Carla, we've got Van in the house. What up, though?
What's going on, bro?
Guys. How y'all doing?
Hey, I am so excited to have you two. Your show is very different. Let's put it that way. You get the opportunity. Being in radio for so long, you have so many things to hit. You've got the post to hit. You got to make sure the commercials run. You got to make sure the drops play. You got to make sure that you hit these time. You guys have the ability to create your own show, your own timing, and you've done just that. It's 3 special hosts plus your whole crew. First of all, introduce yourself and your co-host that couldn't join us here today.
Ladies first.
Well, guys, I am your host, KB.
And I'm Van Everett, the other host. Because our third co-host, he couldn't be with us today. He had a gig. You know, he's out there doing stand-up comedy. So when it calls, he's got to go.
You gotta go, man. Gotta grab that check. I've known about this show, and we were so happy to get you guys on the network because it is a very unique show. So talk to us about how the 3 of you came together and then you put the show together. KB, if you can talk to us briefly, like how did these 3 individuals come together to create this scenario radio show?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. I remember when I was first on the show, I had a popular blog at the time. It was called NashvilleSocialButterfly.com. And when I had that blog site, I was invited to be a guest on the show. And it just so happened to speak that I had a lot to say about local events and building a platform and social media. And the fellas needed a lady voice to kind of balance out the masculine perspectives on the to balance out the male perspectives on the show. So
male perspectives, great way to put
it. So they pitched the idea to me, and I thought that the scenario had great energy. They had a great idea. They had great playlists, great music. And so I definitely saw it as something that I wanted to be a part of. Did I leave anything out, Van?
Well, you said it the way you remember it. That's what's
now, again, that was another way of saying the hold on now.
That's what's important. That way, you know what I'm saying? She said it the way she remembered it.
That was pretty smooth, man. That's pretty smooth. So how do you remember it, man? It was pretty close? That's sort of what happened.
That was close. We actually, that's when because we had already been doing the show for a year before KB came along. And when she came on, she was our guest co-host for that week. And the thing was, we were looking for another co-host to have on there. I would prefer to have had a female voice on there because I wanted to have that energy as well. But as I just wanted somebody who I thought who could really stay with us in the conversations, because the conversation is what makes it important. Right. And she was talking about her passion at the time. And that was what interested me more than anything, was that she talked about what she was passionate about and why she was passionate about it. And there was conviction. So it was like, oh, I felt a good thing. But then right after the show, my engineer was like, she's the one we need to get on the show. Mm-hmm. And that was all I needed to hear. So I was like, okay, well, yeah, we got to talk to her about this. So we courted her after that.
Very cool. and Bcov, from all of this, of course, I've known Bcov for quite some time as a comedian, and I know that he can handle his own. But how did he end up merging into the show?
I dragged him in as well. I dragged him in actually when I originally was trying to do this as a podcast many years ago. I couldn't be consistent about it at the time, so I said, "Yeah, let's do it." He was like, "All right," he's excited. I'm going to call you. Couple of years go by, didn't call him. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to do a radio show too, because I want to put the playlist with it. Yeah. And then I just called him out of the blue and he was still with it. So, he jumped right on board.
So a couple of years later now, several episodes in, and sounds like now several years in the making, and starting it one way, having to continue to kind of cultivate what it's going to be. So tell people who've never listened to the Scenario Radio Show. Before I do that, let me read to you what you say. What you say, you all say. This is a Scenario Show. It's Scenario Radio Show is a talk music program that focuses on centering and celebrating all aspects of the Black experience. Each week, the team explores a wide variety of topics: finance, relationships, politics, entertainment, all of that in an effort to build community. Is that a really good, or let me not say is that, because those are your words you put together, but expound on that. Like, what is it? What do people need to think about this thing, the Scenario Radio Show, being when they listen?
What we call it Real Talk with a Playlist, and the reason we do that is because what we're trying to do is to create an environment for conversation about everything. Because I think we grow up a lot of times in these areas where people keep talking about, well, this is what Black people like to talk about. Right. They keep telling you this is the only thing Black people do. And it's like, no, Black people live all types of lives. So we want to talk to all types of Black people. And the one common thread for us is the music, is that no matter who we all have a soundtrack. We all have memories that are attached to it. So it allows us not only to get to talk about experiences, whatever the subject is, but we get to learn a little bit more about a person. So if you're on our show and we have a song pick that's based on the theme, and you have to tell us that song pick, you're going to tell us your story at the same time. So that's how we
tell. I know we love to tell songs with stories, and the beautiful thing about music, KB, is that it, you hear the soundtrack of our lives, and the reason why they say this is because many of us mark monumental moments in our lives based upon a song that either was on the radio at the time or something that reminds them. So it takes you back to a certain period in your life. So why was it important for you all to merge, KB, the conversation? And I know you hit on it briefly, Van, but KB, merge the conversation and the music together. What made this the combination that you wanted to pursue?
I think that music is a common thread that everybody can connect to. And so we wanted to connect everyone with the music and then tell these different stories about how we were feeling with the music. The Scenario Radio likes to talk about the Black experience, but what we try to show our audience is the Black experience is not a monolith. It comes from a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different backgrounds, and we're trying to educate our audience and leave them with something that they can continue to think about, or something that they hadn't thought about before whenever they listen to the show.
Because the Black experience, as you said, is not a monolith. And there are a lot of Black people that you would get mad at talking to. There are a lot of Black people that you would agree, really, and there are some people that don't look and don't come from your environment that you have more in common with than people that live right next to you, sometimes than the people that's in your house.
Yeah.
So, but it takes conversation and it takes finding those mutual interests to get everybody kind of on the same page. So your shows are weekly about or regularly about different topics. And again, the music around what the topics are about. A couple of the shows, I want to first ask you, when you thought about doing this 2000s R&B women's countdown, let's talk about that. So this was your official survey of who should be the supreme leader of the 2000s queendom, womendom R&B. So so let everybody know, like, who ended up being, let's say, top three. Who ended up being top three?
Oh,
you remember?
My goodness. Top three were I think Beyonce was number 3, which was interesting. If I remember correctly, because I think a lot of people were like, they felt kind of weird about that. I think it was Jill Scott at number 2, and I think it was and it was definitely Erykah Badu at number 1.
I can see that, especially if you're talking about, if you're saying 2000s, meaning 2000 to 2010, Beyonce absolutely would be number 3. Ironically enough, I remember being in radio, giving away tickets to one of the Beyonce concerts. And I remember it was at Bridgestone. And I remember that there was, I'm telling you, it was at Bridgestone, and Matthew Knowles was outside Bridgestone himself giving people tickets to go in. That's how that had to have been, 08, 07, 08, somewhere up in there. So if
Wow.
you're talking about between 2000 and 2010, Beyonce was not this Beyonce at that point.
That we see
Jill
now.
Scott and Erykah Badu coming out of the 90s neo soul, they were still top dogs at the
and
time.
it was the thing is when we do a countdown, our surveys, that's the listeners. They fill that out. So it's all based on the tabulations of whatever they pick. And the way it works is they can vote. They have so many points to vote a person on to the list and so many to vote them off. So it kind of balances everything out. And I was shocked that what Beyonce was at number one. But
I can see that.
When you say it like that, I can see that. Yeah,
I can see it. I can see it all day long. So you've got those fun topics like that. Then you've got the ones that really hit heavy, and the ones that everyone's kind of intently listening to every word. Is not as many laughs that happen because you're really tackling some issues. You had one called Black Enough. Who decides our racial identity? Talk to us about what that was like, how heavy that, and then how do you even insert the songs in there? Like, you just want to keep going.
Oh man, I don't remember the playlist, but I do remember the content of the show. And it was one of those things where people had been raised a certain way or raised around a certain demographic of folks or talk a certain way. And then other potentially Black people might say to them, hey, you don't talk Black enough, or you don't sound like one of them, or you're one of the good ones. And that conversation was one where we just talked about our experiences and our guest experiences around having that conversation, and then really trying to determine, well, where's the baseline? Who's the person that sets the boundary for that? And that's a thought-provoking conversation because there was a lot of perspectives to be heard about what people had experienced, and it was a good time for people to release and let go some of those things too, because those were some memories that people had that had stuck with them and they just didn't know where to put it. And we offered them a safe space where they could share their experiences, well, I was told that I talk white and my parents taught me to do this. And I have always, and we just had a conversation around it. Not a lot of laughs, maybe some, but
it was definitely
it's just
some.
Thought because we're gonna do that because we're gonna make sure
we laugh through our pain sometime. We laugh through the healing. We understand that that is a defense mechanism for some people, but at the end of the day, we can still communicate.
Correct, exactly. And it was a good dialogue. Van, do you have something to add?
Yeah, it was what happened was when I had the idea to do that particular show, sometimes I do outreach and I'll just ask people, okay, have you ever had an experience where somebody told you you weren't Black enough, whether they were white or Black? And I got such an overwhelming response that I had to do series of interviews, pre-record a series of interviews with all of these people to really get this, get an idea of what it was about and what people were going through. And I didn't know it was that pervasive. So and what we did with our playlist was it was actually the white folks music playlist, what it was called.
So that was all
but
White
listen,
Snake and Phil Collins
it was all the songs. It was all the songs that Black people would tell you, oh, this white folks music, we don't listen to that. It's like, oh, we don't? Well, let's see.
Or either they're the ones that you secretly have a playlist of that you listen to in the car, but then when your boys come around and your girls come around, you switch it off.
Switch it to Future.
But the girls got Alanis Morissette on deck. You hear me?
Exactly.
And dudes, we gonna have some Phil Collins, Easy Lover. What? We gonna have it going down. So, but those are the type of shows and the type of interactions that people want, especially in a show like the Scenario Show. That's why we're so glad to have you on GreatConvo, on the GreatConvo family of shows. So we appreciate what you do. And again, real quick, tell them how to find you, where to not only find the show, where they listen to their favorite broadcast, but on social media. How do they catch up with you, or email or whatever?
We are all over the place. We're on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter don't get a lot of burn these days, but it's there, So y'all be sure to hit us up there.
At the Scenario Radio Show?
At Scenario Radio on there, and then at the Scenario Radio Show on Instagram and of course Facebook, the Scenario Radio Show. And we're all the platforms, all of the major platforms. We're there. Everywhere the great media, GreatConvo is, we're there.
We're there. KB.
Yeah, make sure you check us out on YouTube. You can actually take clips and watch us from our show and the playlists that we talked about, like white folks music playlists and other
Right.
playlists that we come up with that have a theme. They're all on Spotify. So go and check us out there.
Very good. And again, shout out to your co-host, Brian B. Covington. You also have your engineer and others executive producing or producing to help make the show rock. Let's give them a shout real quick.
Yeah, shout out to our co-producer, Zai, and of course, Dana Dane, who does a segment called The Segment, formerly known as This Week in Black Twitter, y'all.
Great job there.
Week in Black Twitter. You got to get it. The Scenario Radio Show, one of the great shows on GreatConvo Media. GreatConvo Media Podcast Network. Please make sure you check it out. Go to greatconvo.com, go to our social media platforms, and listen to them wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Thank you so much, KB. Thank you so much, Van.
Yes,
the
sir.
Scenario Radio Show. This is CHATTERBOX. It is our showcase of the great shows on the GreatConvo Family Media family. Thank you so much, y'all. We'll see you soon on the Scenario Radio Show.
All right.
Easy.
That's the scenario.
Peace.